Anthony Rivera was used to people making assumptions about him. It was part of growing up as a Latino man in a big city. He was too used to the suspicious glances, the clutching of purses, the job interviews that ended in polite smiles but no callbacks. After serving 4 years in the military, Anthony thought maybe, just maybe, he had earned a different kind of respect. But when he returned home, he found that the uniform might change the way people looked at him. But it didn't change the way they saw him. Frustrated, Anthony made a bold decision. He packed up everything he owned into his aging pickup truck and drove hundreds of miles to a small town called Fairview Hollow, a quiet place with tree-lined streets and one blinking stoplight downtown. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't exciting, but it was peaceful. He bought a small, run-down auto repair shop at the edge of town, hoping to build a life with his own hands. No favors, no handouts, just honest work. The first few months were brutal. Customers trickled in slowly. Some would hesitate when they saw Anthony behind the counter, pretending to check their phones or muttering about getting a second opinion. A few outright refused to let him work on their cars. He could hear the whispered slurs sometimes, disguised as jokes. But Anthony had learned patience in the military. He kept his head down, fixed the cars to perfection, charged fair prices, and treated every single customer with kindness, even when they didn't return it. One day, a woman named Mrs. Caldwell stormed into the shop, tears streaming down her face. Her old Buick had broken down on the side of the highway, and her husband, sick and frail, needed to get to the hospital for treatment. Without a second thought, Anthony grabbed his tools, jumped into his truck, and sped off with her. He found the car quickly. Flat tire, dead battery. It was nothing he couldn't handle. In less than an hour, he had the Buick running again. He didn't charge her a dime. "You saved my husband's life," Mrs. Caldwell whispered, squeezing his hand. Anthony just smiled and said, "We look out for each other around here, right?" Word spread, first through Mrs. Caldwell's bridge club, then through church groups, then the local diner. People started seeing Anthony not for his skin color, not for their assumptions, but for his actions. An elderly man came in with a broken tractor. A young couple asked for help with a stubborn car seat installation. The high school football team even asked him to sponsor their fundraiser. Slowly, the walls people had built between them and Anthony began to crumble. But not everyone was ready to change. One afternoon, Anthony returned to the shop to find the front window smashed. Spray painted across the wall were 2 words that burned into his soul: "Go home." For a long time, he just stood there. The part of him that had survived boot camp, deployments, and disappointment wanted to pick up the phone, call a realtor, and leave. Why stay where you weren't wanted? But then he remembered Mrs. Caldwell's husband, alive because he hadn't hesitated. He remembered the teenage boy who thanked him last week for fixing his bike for free because he couldn't afford repairs. He remembered the smiles, the real ones, growing more and more common every day. So Anthony called the sheriff. Then he called a contractor to fix the window. Then he painted over the wall himself. Fresh, clean, proud. That weekend, dozens of townspeople showed up uninvited. Some brought food, some brought paint, some just brought themselves. One by one, they helped scrub the hateful graffiti off the walls. One by one, they shook Anthony's hand and said, "You're part of us now." It wasn't the perfect ending. Some people still crossed the street when they saw him coming. Some still whispered behind closed doors. But Fairview Hollow had changed, and so had Anthony, because he knew now, racism doesn't fall away all at once. It crumbles, one act of kindness, one moment of courage, one open heart at a time. And every single day, he chose to stay and fight for that better future, not with anger, but with love. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's keep sharing stories that heal, inspire, and bring us all closer together. Thank you for being here.